Today, Khenpo Sodargye, was indeed invited by Professor Zhou to give a lecture at the Department of Philosophy at Xiamen University. Professor Zhou thoughtfully mentioned that this is a truly great opportunity. So I am also here to give a talk to everyone. In fact, I truly think that this itself is a very good and valuable opportunity. In Buddhist terms, it is actually a truly wonderful blessing. It allows everyone to get much closer to Buddhism and its dedicated practitioners. Of course, Khenpo Sodargye, his role in coming here this time, his identity in this setting, should truly be that of a dedicated Buddhist researcher and an academic scholar. Everyone should really be aware of this. Just now, Professor Zhou also mentioned this point. Khenpo actually mainly means a Dharma teacher, a master. He is a great practitioner of Tibetan Buddhism, with the identity of a religious figure. This is his role. So let me give a brief introduction here. I will talk a little bit about Khenpo Sodargye's remarkable life and his profound journey in diligently spreading the sacred Dharma. In China, when introducing someone, there's a tradition, establishing one's words, achievements, and virtue. Khenpo Sodargye's contributions to establishing words are the books and works he has written. He has already published more than 100 books so far. The total word count of his books is over 10 million characters. This is the part about his literary contributions. As for his achievements, they pertain to his lifelong spiritual practice. He has made progress in Buddhist Vinaya studies, Madhyamaka philosophy, Buddhist logic, Pramana, and the Abhidharmakosha. He has excelled in the study and practice of Prajnaparamita, Tibetan esoteric, Chinese, and Theravada Buddhism. Namely, Chinese, Tibetan, and Theravada Buddhism. In his practice of Tibetan esoteric Buddhism, for example, his attainment in Dzogchen, great perfection, as well as in practices such as Kalachakra and other Tibetan Buddhist methods, he has also achieved profound mastery. In other words, he is not only a scholar, but also a highly accomplished and respected practitioner. The profound topic of his insightful talk today is asking the Buddha, what is emotion? Now, let us warmly and enthusiastically welcome Khenpo Sodargye to graciously give his illuminating lecture. Everyone, please extend a very warm welcome to him.
I am very happy to be here today to have this opportunity to exchange ideas with some teachers and students. The topic of our discussion is rather unique, and perhaps as I stand here on this stage, you may also feel something different when you see this topic. Just now at the entrance, I also heard many students asking, what exactly is this about? In fact, asking the Buddha, what is emotion? I think today, as a devoted Buddhist and also as a dedicated monastic, I would like to have a simple yet profound exchange of ideas with everyone present. It is my sincere hope that each and every one of you here will gain a significant bit of inspiration and receive some valuable help and guidance. That is the sole purpose of my sharing with you today. Why did we choose such a topic? Everyone present should be well aware. You are all young people, and you are all very deeply attached to emotions, to what the world commonly calls love. In precise Buddhist terms, this is specifically called attachment. I have also had the opportunity to visit some schools, and I've observed that some teachers, as well as many students in those educational institutions, are very genuinely concerned about these so-called emotions. They often regard and consider them to be the most fundamental aspect of their entire lives, shaping their experiences and perspectives. But there are many significant reasons for this, and everyone here should be fully aware of them. In this current era of information, our internet, movies, television, and even some contemporary media and popular songs, the myriad voices that we constantly hear and the countless videos that we frequently see are all intricately related to our emotions in some profound way. Consequently, I genuinely believe that a significant number of us, particularly the younger generation, tend to hold the conviction that these so-called feelings are something to be deeply cherished and profoundly attached to throughout the entirety of one's life journey. However, from the perspective of a devout Buddhist practitioner, I truly try to understand this situation from a very positive perspective and then share it with everyone involved. When sharing, all of you here can also observe with your own wisdom. People often talk about what are commonly referred to as love or various emotions that are widely praised, deeply admired, or constantly pursued. But are these feelings and experiences truly as wonderful and brilliant as people universally claim and enthusiastically describe them to be? In this particular regard, all of you present here are indeed university students, and as such possess a certain commendable level of critical thought and analytical ability. If you haven't thoroughly considered this, you may inevitably encounter significant pain or considerable setbacks on your intricate journey through life. So now, as university students, as intellectuals, and as individuals endowed with extensive knowledge and critical understanding, we should collectively pay even more profound and focused attention to some of the most pressing and widely discussed topics currently being pursued and debated by people. In our Tibetan region, when it comes to so-called emotions, in fact, everyone has their own attachments, especially family members are particularly attached to this. But it's not like how it is with people in the West or in Han regions nowadays, where they completely devote all of their thoughts and every single aspect about themselves to this significant matter. They truly believe that in life, the main, most beautiful, and indeed the very best meaning is found right here. There is no such established tradition. From the perspective of the ancients, I don't think it was like this either. People in ancient times truly valued literature greatly, and they highly esteemed art as well. They also placed great importance on other worldly knowledge and wisdom. So, as a Buddhist practitioner, I do not reject emotions or feelings. We Buddhists, I would say, are actually quite inclusive. Some people truly think that so-called Buddhism is completely devoid of emotion, especially for monastics like me. When a monastic leaves their home, they completely abandon their entire family and sever all of their social ties. How truly cruel, how indeed harsh an act this is. Many people often use different words to describe our image. But in actual reality, I personally think that Buddhist thought is not like that at all. To be honest, Buddhist philosophy simply takes the profound and deep-seated attachments people have to love and various other complex human emotions and meticulously and comprehensively describes them in great and intricate detail with truly remarkable and insightful accuracy. You could certainly and accurately put it this way, whether it's becoming a monk or studying the Dharma in Buddhism, it doesn't necessarily mean abandoning all love or all human emotions completely. There is no such an idea. It's just that many people simply do not fully understand this concept. Currently, some TV shows, movies, and even certain media outlets distort the image of Buddhism. They do not present the true meaning and philosophy of Buddhism to the public. As for the so-called love that people in the world pursue, in fact, many of you here should really reflect on it. Actually, its shelf life is not very long. Sometimes, once it expires, neither you nor others can make use of it. But at this point, there are many expressions in Buddhism that describe this. Everything is impermanent. Everything is suffering. This arises directly from our own deep attachment. This is something that you intellectuals should be perfectly able to analyze and comprehend. Although more than 2,500 years ago, our revered master, Shakyamuni Buddha, did indeed renounce the household life, his profound renunciation was not about completely abandoning all his loved ones. His renunciation was merely a symbolic act. Perhaps some of you have already been to India or are quite familiar with the fascinating stories and detailed biographies of the Buddha. From these, you can also see that his temporary departure was actually a profound path to awakening to the fundamental nature of life and existence. Therefore, throughout the entirety of human history, true monastics have not actually abandoned all of their beloved loved ones. Instead, they truly embody a profound spirit of the greatest and most expansive love, one that is completely and utterly unconditional, a spirit that is entirely devoted to the well-being of all life. Although this spirit may seem, on the surface, that we might distance ourselves a bit from our small families and close relatives, this is not unique to Buddhism alone. Even in today's society, many successful entrepreneurs, still successful leaders in society, or even people in the entertainment industry, they too may also leave their own families behind, devoting themselves wholeheartedly to their important work and demanding careers. You can probably find many examples of prominent celebrities like this as well. There are also many influential leaders and many successful entrepreneurs who dedicate themselves entirely not starting families or getting married. Why is that? They simply want to devote their entire lives completely to society. If they have strong attachments to family, they feel that it would truly deprive them of their essential freedom. So this kind of profound spirit also profoundly exists within society. Today, I am certainly not here to actively promote Buddhism. However, I sincerely hope that many of the bright university students gathered here will diligently seek to understand our fundamental truths in a truly positive and open-minded way. This profound truth, no matter where it truly is located, will ever continue to shine brightly and brilliantly. It cannot merely disappear or fade away because of certain people's mere opinions or viewpoints. In this way, what Buddhism calls seeing through things. It is quite possible that each and every individual might come to fully realize and deeply understand it in a somewhat different and unique way. That is to say, within the profound teachings of Buddhism, if we were to respectfully ask the Buddha what exactly is truly meant by the complex concept of emotion, in actual fact, the Buddha himself gave many detailed and varied descriptions of emotion in numerous different scriptures. As the teacher just mentioned, I haven't answered directly yet. Actually, I don't even really know who came up with this particular topic. Everyone else definitely said we should really talk about this. Later, I said, no matter what, I'll just share my understanding with everyone. In this world, people often ask, what is love in this world? But they truly say, it makes people pledge their entire lives and deaths to each other. You live and I die, or we both live and die together. Indeed, there are truly many such intricate and deeply profound entanglements between people. But if you ask the Buddha, what is this emotion really like? As for emotions, do ordinary people acknowledge their existence? The Buddha does acknowledge them. Does Buddhism acknowledge them? Yes, it does. You may have seen in Buddhist scriptures such as the Dirgha Agama Sutra and the Ekottara Agama Sutra, as well as the Shansheng Sutra and many other classics, including the Dhammapada, that the normal marriage, normal emotions, and normal life of lay people are all described very clearly. So it's not the case that after studying Buddhism, everyone must become a monk or nun. Nor is it required to completely sever all attachments to love and emotions. There is no such teaching. All the relevant scriptures and treatises say so. But what does Buddhism actually teach? It teaches that so-called romantic love, at its root, is a form of attachment. This is something everyone may need to recognize. When you are attached to it, you experience a lot of suffering, although in the process it can also bring you a kind of happiness. But ultimately, in the end, it brings you a lot of suffering. Some individuals might not think this way. They may feel, it's something so wonderful, how could it be suffering? Of course, if you haven't genuinely experienced it, you might feel that way. But when you truly reach the very end, you will feel it too, especially those who have already been through it. Those who have already tasted the full range of emotions. They all can indeed feel that there are very many flavors, sweet, sour, bitter, and spicy, within it. There are also stories in the world about the impermanence of love. I once read a conversation between someone who had been married and someone who had never been married. It was a dialogue between these two people. When I read this conversation, I found it quite interesting. At that particular moment, the individual who had never experienced the bonds of matrimony eloquently described the profound and beautiful essence of so-called love. Sometimes he passionately declared it was the most vibrant and boundless ocean. At other times, he tenderly suggested it was a truly captivating and mesmerizing painting. Sometimes he praised it saying it was truly the most beautiful song he had ever heard. He even mentioned that before ancient Greece there was a king named Pygmalion. King Pygmalion himself was a sculptor. He sculpted a young woman himself. When the sculpture was finally completed, she was especially beautiful and stunning. He even fell deeply in love with her himself and felt truly great joy. In the end, he prayed to her every single day, held her close every day, and kissed her tenderly every day. Later, to everyone's surprise, the magnificent statue actually came to life. He skillfully used this captivating story to begin eloquently praising what is universally called true and enduring love. However, those individuals who were already happily married shook their heads and said, "No, it's truly not quite like that at all." He then proceeded to tell yet another captivating story. During the southern dynasties, there was a man named Liu Zhen. Liu Zhen's younger sister was married to the Prince of Poyang at that time. At that time, the Prince of Poyang and his sister had a very good relationship. But later, because of some matters, the Prince of Poyang was killed by others. After he was killed, his sister was extremely heartbroken. She stopped eating and drinking every day, was on the verge of death, and was close to leaving this world. At this time, Liu Zhen, for the sake of his sister, painted a particularly moving picture. The painting depicted the Prince of Poyang, together with his most beloved concubine from before. It was a beautiful painting of the two of them, looking intently into a polished mirror, together, side by side. Later, after his sister saw this painting, not only did she not feel any profound attachment or lingering pain toward him whatsoever, but she immediately and unequivocally said, "A person like that truly deserved to die sooner." Her once intensely passionate so-called love, in a single, shocking instant, completely and utterly transformed into what could only be described as a deep, bitter, and gnashing hatred. What exactly does this truly show? It clearly demonstrates that, in fact, in this world, I think many of you who are present here sometimes genuinely need to understand some essential knowledge in this particular regard. Although you may know a great deal about worldly matters, in this specific respect, Buddhism often teaches that whether it's love or hate, all of these are impermanent. When impermanence arrives, even if you truly want to have her, it will be utterly impossible. Moreover, impermanence itself is actually a profound kind of suffering. In Buddhism, there is a very famous and significant treatise called the 400 Verses of the Middle Way. The 400 Verses of the Middle Way, in summary, essentially says that our attachments are inherently impermanent, and this impermanence truly means changing from one moment to the next. And this kind of constant impermanence actually brings about suffering. For example, when two people have a very good and strong relationship, once one person's heart truly changes, that is indeed impermanence. But such an unexpected impermanence brings you great pain. So why do we say its nature is suffering? The reason lies here. I remember the Buddha once said to Venerable Ananda, he said, "Be careful not to trust your own mind, for your mind is not trustworthy. Be careful not to indulge in sensual pleasures, for indulgence brings disaster." What does this mean? It means that we must never trust our clinging and discriminating mind. If you rely on it, there's really nothing trustworthy about it. If you do actually trust it, if we truly trust our own personal attachments, it truly is quite unreliable. Especially if you are very much attached to the concept of your own physical beauty, one day it will inevitably and certainly bring you significant suffering. Nowadays, it seems that many young people truly and genuinely do not fully comprehend this important truth. If that's truly the case, then in your future life, you will find you may experience all kinds of suffering. We think the human body is very beautiful. However, That's only when we haven't carefully examined it in sufficient detail. You like this, you like that. It's understandable to say so, but in actual fact, when you truly observe with profound wisdom, the very objects we are so deeply attached to are actually nothing more than mere flesh. If you meticulously analyze this physical body from head to toe, bit by bit, it's simply that I am attached to her. I truly love her. I constantly think about her. It's just a heap of such a body. This kind of body, whether after death or while alive, if you dissect it, there is nothing worth being attached to. This is the Buddhist way of thinking. Buddhist thought does not use power to oppress people. It's not like that at all. This is a very realistic and profound theory to explain what your current attachments actually bring to you in your life. There is a particularly classic story in Buddhism. I don't know if you've read the Surangama Sutra. In the Surangama Sutra, there is a woman named Matangi. Among the Buddha's disciples at that time, there was one called Venerable Ananda. He was a monk, and Matangi fell in love with this monk. She tried everything she could to make him return to lay life, and when she was trying to make him return to lay life, at that time Venerable Ananda was also in a rather dangerous situation. The Buddha asked Matangi, "Why do you like him?" Matangi answered one by one, "I like his ears. I like his nose. I really like his eyes. I like his mouth." Because of all his features, she was especially interested in him and liked him very much. Later, the Buddha asked her about each feature. What are his ears like? What does his whole face look like? What about his body? He analyzed each part for her, one by one. As he analyzed each part, Matangi was also someone with sharp faculties, a person with certain spiritual roots and karmic affinity. She became enlightened right then and there. There is another part where the Buddha said, "If you really like him so much, then could you drink the water Ananda just used to bathe?" She replied, "This water smells bad. I don't want to drink it. Even though I love him, I still don't want to drink the water he used to bathe. It's just too dirty." The Buddha asked, "If you like him so much, why is it that the dirty water from inside and outside his body, shouldn't it not be dirty? Shouldn't you be able to enjoy it?" She thought about it for a brief moment and truly realized it actually made quite a lot of sense indeed. In reality, what we call love is indeed a kind of attachment. This is something everyone must understand. Otherwise, in today's modern society, including on television and in motion pictures, in so many of these instances, so-called love truly seems to be absolutely everything in life. Many young people, especially children, grow up in this kind of educational and promotional environment from a very young age. When you eventually grow up, you may then lack the essential ability to truly face it. In fact, so-called romantic love, from the perspective of us Buddhists, is extremely fragile. One could say it's a promise that can't withstand even the slightest breeze. The moment you encounter any difficulty, it immediately, nowadays people call it a fragile item. It's easily broken. When you're on a plane, you have to be careful not to touch it, because if you do, it will shatter. It's just that a lot of words are used to cloud your judgment. It's truly like a particularly delicate and beautiful bubble. If you touch it even slightly, it immediately starts to burst and dissipate. When it bursts, some people feel disappointed, while others fall into despair and even choose suicide. This is a particularly unwise choice. In the past, in Tibet, I am originally from Tibet. The cultural traditions in Tibet are quite different from those found in the Han region. In some specific places, there are indeed significant and notable traditional differences. Nowadays, young people in Tibet are basically the same as those of the Han ethnicity. They are also especially attached to and pursue deeply romantic feelings and share many of the very same ideas. As for the older generation, as I previously mentioned earlier, although they certainly have some particular views on this significant matter, they truly don't regard it as something particularly important or crucial, nor do they constantly and consistently use all kinds of flowery language to embellish or praise it, especially in the Han regions. Since the Tang dynasty, there has been all kinds of promotion. I genuinely think the promotion has been a bit excessive. In fact, it's not truly that beautiful, but you start to package it with all sorts of elaborate language. You keep packaging it with all kinds of language, keep wrapping it up with all sorts of good things. But when you open it up, it turns out it's not like that at all. So in the end, many people feel very pained inside. From a deep Buddhist perspective, this kind of profound suffering should not be experienced by all sentient beings. Every living being should attain true happiness. That's why the sacred Buddha, in an ancient scripture called the Sutra of Mindfulness of the True Dharma, in the ancient and revered Sutra of Mindfulness of the True Dharma, it is clearly stated, if one becomes deeply attached to desire, then all kinds of persistent suffering will constantly arise and manifest. This means that if we are excessively greedy or develop a strong attachment to love, then all sorts of continuous suffering will inevitably keep appearing in our lives. So, our suffering actually comes from a particular kind of relentless pursuit, when we truly manage to reach a profound state of having absolutely no desires, not to mention the profound and often misunderstood concept of so-called emptiness in Buddhism. Some of you may not have studied what is called emptiness, so you might not fully understand it. However, when you genuinely and profoundly understand the fundamental reality of it all, at that precise moment, your intense desire to relentlessly pursue various worldly things won't be nearly as strong or compelling. When you don't have such a strong desire to pursue, you won't feel so much pain over what you've lost, not that much pain. So in some spiritual practices, it is said that having no desires is a kind of happiness. There was once a person who truly wanted very much to be happy. He was very wealthy despite his wealth, but he could never find true happiness. No matter if it was his relationships or the care from his friends and family, he just couldn't find happiness. Later, he asked if there was a happiest person in the world. He truly wanted to become the happiest person in the world indeed. Then, someone eventually informed him that there was indeed a truly happiest person existing in the entire world. They explained that if he could successfully acquire the very clothes of this exceptionally joyful individual, then he himself would undoubtedly become happy. So he went everywhere asking, and eventually someone said, in the mountains there was an old hermit, and this hermit had the happiest clothes. So he went to diligently look for this particular person in the mountains. He then asked him, are you truly the happiest person in the world? The hermit replied, I suppose so. I don't really have any great suffering. He asked, can you give me your best shirt? The hermit said, I don't have any shirts, nor do I have any suffering. Then he began to realize, in fact, having no desires is a kind of happiness. Even having nothing is happiness. Some people might not be able to feel this at first. They think, without it, it's impossible to be happy. Only if I have it, will I be happy. But when you actually have it, that happiness isn't truly there. Every pleasure and every kind of wealth in this world is like this. When you genuinely don't have money, you think having money would definitely make you happy. But when you really have money, it's often just so-so. When you don't have a family, you think that if you had a family, you might be the happiest person. But when you actually have a family, it turns out to be quite painful too. When you don't have status, you think, if only I had status. For example, if I'm a deputy director, I think, to be the director. If I'm the director, I think, to be the deputy mayor. If you become the deputy mayor, then you think how great it would be to be the mayor, and you keep on chasing like this. But when you finally get there, you're still not satisfied. This is how our greed knows no bound. If we truly learn to diligently practice moderation in every facet of our daily lives, I genuinely believe that many individuals, encompassing all significant aspects of your personal and professional existence, will ultimately discover some profound and authentic meaning. Therefore, in this contemporary era, I think it is incredibly important that many young people should not only diligently study and master their professional knowledge and skills, but also carefully look into Buddhism and other spiritual religions as well, to learn and understand some knowledge that is truly worth studying. Because some of us only pursue wealth, but if your inner spiritual wealth is very poor, then it will indeed be very hard to make progress in your future life. So, I genuinely believe that for all the discerning intellectuals present here today, in the foreseeable future, whether considering your own profound personal development and growth, or embarking upon your significant and prosperous path to accumulating wealth, we should consider how to diligently pursue and cultivate a more truly perfect attitude toward life itself. This attitude is not just about what some people now believe, that having money and material possessions means you have everything you need. This is a very unreasonable idea and an utterly baseless statement. On the one hand, we must carefully draw upon the profound knowledge of our traditional culture and at the same time concepts from Buddhism such as great compassion, great wisdom, emptiness and selflessness, etc. These kinds of theories are truly meaningful and incredibly valuable for your life, especially in Mahayana Buddhism, whether it is about all sentient beings or all kinds of feelings and emotions. There are very detailed and extensive descriptions, including the Buddha's insightful descriptions of emotions in the Theravada scriptures. In fact, what kind of descriptions are there? This kind of description refers to karmic connections from past lives. In Theravada Buddhism, when a person meets someone and immediately feels a special affection or joy towards them, what exactly is this? This is a karmic connection from a previous life. In Theravada Buddhism, this is specifically called vipaka, or karmic retribution. Some of our emotions are actually about repaying debts from the past. Some are about collecting debts, while others are about diligently repaying them. So don't think that this is just a random occurrence of fate, because right now, in some of our education and thinking, we simply can't explain the complex relationships between people. You can only see some phenomena in this present life, but the relationships from past lives and future lives and many such issues are a blank space within the broader context of current fields of thought. If we completely deny these things in the journey of your life, you will undoubtedly encounter many significant troubles and challenges in the future. As for what is precisely called emotion or kilesa within the Theravada branch of Buddhism, it is regarded as something that also has causes and conditions from past lives, as well as some accidental connections in this life. But in Mahayana Buddhism, it is transformed into a kind of great love. So what is meant by great love? As everyone knows, so-called emotions are often about possession. What is it that we possess? Some of it is quite utilitarian. What exactly does that mean? As long as I can truly make use of you, I will certainly be with you for the time being. If I can't use you, then I don't need you. Some time ago, I distinctly recall going to a particular university, a place where, unfortunately, 2 students had tragically died. It was widely rumored and generally said that a female student and a male student. At first, it certainly seemed as though they were romantically dating on campus. Later, however, the girl herself said, "If both of us get into graduate school, then we will continue like this. If you get into graduate school and I don't, we should absolutely continue our relationship. If I am fortunate enough to get into graduate school and you, unfortunately, do not, then we can consider breaking up at some point in the future." After she expressed these sentiments, it truly did seem as though an undeniable force of fate had completely taken over. And the girl got into graduate school, but the boy didn't. She insisted on breaking up and said they shouldn't keep in touch anymore. After that, the boy was extremely heartbroken. Eventually, he couldn't take it anymore, and one day he went to her dorm to find her. The boy brutally strangled her, ultimately causing her death. Following this tragic act, he then proceeded to jump off a tall building, committing suicide. This is, in fact, a profoundly true and deeply disturbing story. Therefore, In today's modern society, it is evident that there truly are some relationships that are purely and solely utilitarian in their nature. They're entirely based on mere utility, not on any genuine mutual care or deep affection. So what exactly is this? In the context of Buddhism, this is often called a lesser form of love. This kind of love is actually the cause of suffering. So what is love in Buddhism? It's great compassion and bodhicitta, as taught in the Mahayana tradition. Including all the people around us, as well as all living beings, indeed even plants and animals, are all completely encompassed by this kind of truly unconditional love. Many people, when they hear this, think, wow, is that even possible? Isn't that too mystical? In fact, this particular way of thinking contains some very profound meanings. If we truly possess such a mindset, it is indeed the most precious spiritual wealth for humanity. I often think to myself, now, in human history, we have art and science. Having all kinds of inventions is not necessarily humanity's greatest success. Rather, humanity's greatest success and greatest achievement actually lies in truly understanding deeply the complex origins and workings of our own innermost mind, and in discovering the so-called subtle structures of the mind. This discovery was already described in great detail in Buddhist thought more than 2,500 years ago. So sometimes, we shouldn't blindly pursue wealth after graduation, thinking if we have money, we'll be happy, and if we don't, we won't. Nowadays, many teachers and civil servants have nothing in their hearts but money, lacking humanity or morality. This is a truly very unfortunate and regrettable situation. Of course, there are still some individuals who place great importance on schools and ideological education. I often communicate and engage in meaningful dialogue with everyone, and in the enriching process of these valuable exchanges, I especially want to earnestly pursue true human wisdom, a profound wisdom that genuinely benefits all living beings. I firmly believe that many diligent students gathered here today can also wholeheartedly aspire to embrace this noble pursuit and can indeed fully attain it as well. If we truly lack such profound wisdom, even if one were to diligently read 10,000 books, it may not necessarily be truly beneficial or deeply impactful. So I think for today, let's just have this simple and straightforward exchange. In my view, actually, when it comes to how the Buddha sees our emotions, what is it really like? He doesn't insist that everyone must become a monk, nor does he require everyone to study Buddhism. Thoughts and beliefs are both free. However, in various Buddhist scriptures and teachings, the Buddha advises everyone to be very cautious and not to become too deeply attached. When we become truly attached, this strong attachment brings a great deal of suffering to us. In fact, this suffering is like being trapped in a cocoon of our own making. It is self-inflicted, but many sentient beings truly do not understand this. So sometimes we see that many intellectuals, in terms of knowledge, academic degrees, and various aspects, are very admirable and quite outstanding. Yet when it comes to the most crucial issues, they just can't figure them out. They get stuck in a small problem and can't extricate themselves. Why is that? Some things we have never studied, and some things we simply don't understand. It is precisely because we don't understand that many inconveniences arise in our lives. Let's put aside for now the discussion of how each sentient being will eventually attain Buddhahood, or how one will ultimately achieve Buddhahood and develop the bodhicitta to liberate countless sentient beings. Profound Buddhist doctrines like these I will not discuss for the time being. But when it comes to the benefits for our present life, I think some Buddhist ideas, for example, the profound Buddhist view of impermanence, that all phenomena are inherently impermanent, including myself and indeed all of us, as we naturally age a little bit and as our values change in many ways, are all undergoing transformation. This is also very important. For everyone present, it's not the case that after a person dies, they simply vanish into nothingness with nothing left at all, completely disappearing without a trace. It's not like that. The continuation of life must go on endlessly. In this life, we are human beings, but in the next life, we may be human again, or perhaps something else. This stream of life continues to exist without interruption. When your life exists, the good and bad karma you have created in this life will inevitably have to be experienced as cause and effect in future lives. But to understand this truth, we must realize that our current life is short, just a few decades. So when you encounter the truth, you must never give it up. Such opportunities are very rare indeed, and when they truly, really come, you truly cannot let go of a truth that benefits both yourself and others. If you give it up, you will deeply regret it in the future. I have met many people who, when they were young, were always preoccupied with their own emotions, desires for wealth, and so on. They were always busy, never seeking the truth. When they truly reach the final moments of their lives. For example, when they are diagnosed with a terminal illness like cancer, or when they grow old and are about to leave this world, they feel a sense of panic. Will my life truly continue on after this? So, what exactly should I do now? Who indeed will I become in my next life? That's why many people now have a significant question mark when it comes to the concept of the afterlife. Many people don't dare to say it doesn't exist because they can't give a reason. But they also don't want to say that it does exist. If it does exist, how should we face it? The way to face it isn't found in other philosophies. Only in Buddhism is this explained very clearly. On this point, I very much agree with Confucian thought. Indeed, it is indispensable in many aspects of how we conduct ourselves and interact with others. However, when it comes to the profound mysteries of the afterlife, how exactly should one thoughtfully make their choices? Even the Venerable Confucius himself did not explicitly clarify this intricate matter at that particular time. So I truly wonder, what precisely did the enlightened Buddha say regarding the nature of emotion? In the ultimate truth, or the concept of emptiness, it simply does not inherently exist. Not to mention asking the Buddha, even if you ask physicists about so-called emotion. Even from a psychological perspective, it does not exist when analyzed. In our human bodies, there are no thoughts or feelings of the mind, and the senses do not exist either. In the end, everything is reduced to matter becoming the most subtle form. Thoughts also cease to exist. One could say they become emptiness. This is something shared, and Buddhist thought can be integrated with it. But in the present secular world, Buddhism also profoundly acknowledges our normal way of life. However, such a life should not be too deeply deluded. If it becomes too profoundly deluded, indeed in life there are many things you simply cannot imagine. The wise ancients should have understood this, including the great Zhuangzi and the Venerable Confucius. Some of their compelling stories also clearly reflect this profound understanding. Nowadays, many young people do not study these things. If you truly do not learn truly valuable stories, or indeed very important and significant maxims, in the end, when you face difficulties yourself, I have seen many people start to choose suicide. When you hear about this, don't just mention Buddhism. If you have a good grasp of traditional culture, you won't be so attached to emotions. Traditional culture also includes this. In the past, Zhuangzi. Maybe all of you already understand this. Perhaps I am just showing off my limited knowledge. Once, when Zhuangzi went out, he saw, in front of a solemn grave, a woman diligently fanning with a delicate fan. As she was continuously fanning, he thoughtfully considered that this person was quite interesting indeed. He asked her, "What is the reason for this?" She said, "This grave belongs to my husband." Zhuangzi thought to himself, maybe it was summer and she was afraid the body would rot or something like that. But she said, "Because I had made a solemn promise to him at that particular time, that within 3 years, if your grave hasn't dried, I won't remarry. But after just a month, I wanted to remarry. So I used a fan to try to dry the grave as quickly as possible. Later, Zhuangzi was very disappointed. When he got home, he told his wife about it. His wife said, "I would never do that. If you were to die, I would absolutely never act that way." She began to swear, "I would truly never do that. That person has absolutely no conscience." But less than 7 short days later, Zhuangzi suddenly fell gravely ill and, tragically, died. After he passed away, according to the local customs and traditions, during the 7 days of keeping vigil over the body, it wasn't like it is now, where when someone dies, within 24 hours they're taken to the funeral home and immediately cremated. It wasn't like that in ancient times. Back then, during the 7 days, the deceased's body would be carefully placed in a coffin. Then it would be securely sealed, and people would reverently burn various paper offerings, leaving them as a tribute at that very spot. At this significant moment, a distinguished nobleman from the prosperous state of Chu arrived there. He had originally harbored a strong desire to formally take Zhuangzi as his esteemed teacher and become his dedicated disciple. But when he arrived, Zhuangzi had already passed away. After Zhuangzi's unfortunate passing, he was profoundly saddened and remained there for a significant few days. While he was staying there for a period of several days, the distinguished nobleman from Chu, who was remarkably handsome and possessed a dignified demeanor, developed mutual feelings of deep affection with Zhuangzi's grieving wife. The nobleman from Chu then politely asked her to open the coffin because he earnestly desired to take a final look. According to the customs of the time, this was considered extremely disrespectful to the deceased. But in order to marry him as soon as possible, the wife agreed to open the coffin. When she opened it, it turned out that Zhuangzi was no longer inside. The coffin was completely empty. She was terrified, and when she looked again, she realized that the nobleman from Chu was actually Zhuangzi in disguise. Zhuangzi was already by her side, and when he appeared beside her, she was overwhelmed with shame and died on the spot. There are stories like this. I once read a historical account like this. So I think in such historical stories, in fact, what we call affection is truly impermanent. Many of us may indeed understand a great deal, but we are often unwilling to fully reveal the complete truth of it. However, in the end, whether you will truly become like this is genuinely hard to say. So if we were to ask the Buddha about the impermanence of emotions, the Buddha acknowledges the undeniable existence of emotions, but he teaches that they are inherently impermanent and often a significant cause of suffering. That's precisely why many young people are wisely advised not to get completely lost or overwhelmed by them. It's perfectly acceptable and entirely valid to live a very normal life. This is something in life which you most probably will not truly find in any ordinary or comprehensive worldly education. People have always very greatly praised this indeed. When you grow up, how should you live your life? How can you be happy? But in reality, when you actually live that way, what if you're not happy? Who is making you suffer? On the one hand, in today's life, sometimes I observe many celebrities singing, always publicly showing their affection every single day. But in fact, what kind of significant benefit or potential harm does this truly bring to countless people? It's certainly worth everyone deeply thinking about. Some young individuals possess a certain mindset. They will thoughtfully reflect upon all sorts of issues in their daily lives. Some people just follow the crowd, go with the flow, and have no opinions of their own. In the end, this brings a great deal of inconvenience to themselves. So I think, according to Buddhist thought combined with traditional culture, everyone should truly and deeply understand what worldly attachment are in their fundamental essence. The Venerable Infinite Life Sutra sacredly and profoundly states, "People in the midst of desire are born alone and die alone, come alone and go alone." Actually, this is a profound teaching. Each of us needs to understand this. In the end, you are born alone and die alone, come alone and go alone. When you came into this world, you also came and went alone. And when you leave, it is also alone. So everyone needs to have a sense of independence and self-reliance. I think that in life we must never rely on others. If you can't survive without others, that is the choice of a fool. Although we must have respect for our families and for others, we should be considerate of their feelings and understand others in all aspects. These are also taught in Buddhism, but our emotions and affections should be built upon a truly secure and very safe boundary in all respects. This is indeed beneficial for our own daily lives and overall well-being. So today, I just wanted to express this a little bit, to gently remind everyone to be mentally prepared in all aspects of their lives. There are many very profound teachings in Buddhism, including those I have previously provided to many people for their study. In Buddhism, there is a text called The Way of the Bodhisattva, Bodhicariyavatara. The Way of the Bodhisattva addresses a person's entire mindset and morality, as well as all kinds of attachments and interpersonal interactions, offering profound guidance. In many respects, it is something modern people really must learn. It is truly an excellent book containing many profound Mahayana Buddhist ideas and concepts. There is a spirit of taking joy in helping others, which should be the attitude of a true host. If you have this, your life will probably be very truly joyful as well. Otherwise, if everything is always selfish and completely self-centered, then nothing in our lives will necessarily bring us real happiness. So today, I especially and sincerely hope that everyone will truly learn and deeply understand the profound philosophy of Buddhism. Among Buddhist teachings, especially the altruistic mind of bodhicitta, and ultimately the view of emptiness that realizes all phenomena lack inherent existence. These two can encompass all forms of learning. At the same time, they also cover all worldly knowledge. All right, thank you all.